Acts of violence targeting our children. Mass school shootings rock our sense of safety.
The reality is, this is the times we're living in.
Gunfire in the classroom. As students rush out, officers rush in.
As you're entering the building, you may have kids fleeing out.
Police train for the worst. Preparing for a school shooting in our community, a community that knows the trauma of tragedy.
It was any other day. Sun was shining, it was March.
Tonight, a special Region 8 News investigation. From inside the classroom to the front lines of first responders and in the homes of families. Those who know the tragedy of it firsthand share their experiences as we look at just how safe your child's school is.
I've already lived this nightmare, and I was like, now I'm subjecting my own children to it, and I feel like I play Russian roulette every day with their lives. Every day I send them to school.
Right now, a sense of security protecting our children. Here's Chris Carter.
Since 1970, 589 people have died as a result of school shootings in the United States. Good evening, I'm Chris Carter. Thanks for joining us for this Region 8 News special investigation. 5 of those victims at Westside Middle School on March 24th, 1998. Every person tasked with protecting your children have a sense of security at the front of their mind. Over the next hour, we will talk to those who respond to the calls. We will look at how schools and law enforcement prepare for the worst, and we are going to talk to those who have lived the West Side tragedy. But first, we look at the problem of school shootings in America, a problem seemingly hard to combat, one that continues to grow. We do want to warn you, some of the topics and videos throughout the next hour may be hard to watch and see, so viewer discretion is advised.
Hostile shots fired. 1200 building.
Martin Stillman Douglas High School. Shut up.
They are the calls happening all too often in America. Police are responding to school shootings at a growing rate.
School shootings in the history of the country, it's going on for years.
Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott knows the reality of a school shooting. He was one of the first officers to respond to Westside Middle School when 2 students pulled the fire alarm and began shooting at students who walked out of the building.
It looked like a war zone. I mean, you had people running everywhere. You had teachers trying to get kids out of the line of what was the fire, line of fire.
There's no explanation to why this happened.
Brandy Varner's sister was among the victims at Westside. 11-year-old Brittany died in surgery after she was rushed from the school. It was there at the hospital Brandy learned her younger sister was dead.
The emotion that you feel in a moment of seconds is so powerful and overwhelming, because I remember when he came in and he said it, and just the first part of what he said was, as soon as she got here, and I remember being hopeful, thinking, okay, she's okay.
Since that March 1998 day, hundreds more children have died while attending class. Since 1970, the Sandy Hook Promise estimates more than 2,000 school shootings have occurred. The deadliest, the shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School. 27 people were killed. And since that December 2012 massacre, the numbers have grown. Of the more than 2,000 school shootings, almost half, 948, have taken place since. In the 2020-2021 school year alone, the National Center for Education Statistics found there were 93 shootings at a public or private school.
We don't have any description yet. We just hear shots, but there appears to be shots fired. Keep the school locked down, gentlemen.
Beyond the dead and wounded, children who see the violence or hide from a barrage of bullets can be profoundly traumatized. The Sandy Hook Promise, a nonprofit created to protect schools from gun violence following the Sandy Hook school shooting, found since the Columbine High School shooting in 1999, 300,000 students have been on campus during a shooting. And it's something police have to consider as officers rush in.
You know, you had the wounded, and then you had the psychologically injured. They were not physically hurt, but they were laying on the ground. They couldn't move.
The likelihood of long-term effects is high. An estimated 3 million children in the U.S. are exposed to shootings each year, whether at school, in their communities, or at home. The majority of them teens. The United States Secret Service estimates more than 70% of school shootings occur in high schools.
I was advised possibly 3 more victims, the shooters possibly inside the 3-story building.
For those tasked with protecting and serving, preventing these numbers from rising is key.
And you can't plan 100%. Everything will go smoothly according to plan.
And protecting our children is at the forefront of teachers and administrators. They want your children to enjoy school and to be safe.
I just think that we have to do whatever we can. I mean, our kids are worth it. And whatever investments we need to make to ensure their safety, we should be doing.
Over the years, school security has changed. It's more advanced and it's more high tech. Our Griffin Demaray talked with those who are in the Mark School District, and he joins us now with what they're doing. Griffin.
Chris, making sure students are safe is no small task anymore. And administrators believe without safety upgrades, parents won't feel safe sending their children to school.
As a parent and as an educator, there is nothing more important than keeping our children safe.
In an ever-changing world, even dropping your kids off at school is something that leaves people on edge.
I think our first job as a school district is we have to provide that safe environment for our kids.
That is exactly what school districts around Northeast Arkansas are doing. In Marktree, the district is making major upgrades in the wake of school shootings nationwide.
But if we're ever faced with a situation that's as tragic as those events, we want to make sure that on the front end we've taken every precaution, possibility, everything we can do to protect our kids, to make sure that they're safe once they get here.
Those precautions include different training exercises as well as physical upgrades around the building to help keep danger out.
We're updating some of our exterior doors, making those more heavy duty, stay locked. We're adding a SRO to the campus. I think that'll be a great asset to kind of help shore up that safety side of things.
For a small district, these are major upgrades. Superintendent Matt Wright said the district does not want to look back and realize it was too late.
You don't need a resource officer until you need a resource officer, and if you've waited, it's too late in one of those terrible events.
Along with the upgrades, the school will be introducing active shooter trainings on a scheduled basis, something they have never done before. Whitney Phillips and Tyler Permetter are both principals in the district.
When I first began in education, we really didn't have active shooter trainings, and then as the years progressed, we started training in active shooter drills and things like that.
At the end of the day, Superintendent Wright said he would do anything for the children.
There is nothing more valuable than our students. They are the most valuable commodity that our communities have. Will these things ever occur? We don't know, but ultimately we have to be prepared if they ever do.
Wright said he has kids of his own and knows how parents feel right now, and said his goal is to make sure no one is worried about sending their child off for the day. In Marktree, Griffin Demaray, Region 8 News.
Past tragedies mean future changes for school districts. Like in Marion, we have already seen it happening across our area. Hundreds of new security cameras will be installed in every building in the school district. Locking systems are also being installed. The district will also use the Rave panic button, which allows first responders to be notified quickly in an emergency. Parents will also see uniformed law enforcement officers daily at every school campus. And where you live can play a major role in how schools are protected. Rural and small school districts tend to have a higher number of school incidents. Since 1970, the Associated Press found of the 10 deadliest school shootings, all but one of them took place in a community of less than 75,000 people. Most of the shootings have occurred in cities with fewer than 50,000 people. Now, this map shows the 10 deadliest school shootings. The deadliest was in 2012 when 26 people were killed at a school in Newtown, Connecticut. The 1998 West Side Middle School shooting is on that list with 5 people killed. Tonight, our Hayden Savage is in Highland to look at how the size of your child's school could impact the amount of security. And Hayden, are there any comparable differences?
Yeah, Chris, you'd actually be surprised. The Highland School District and the Mammoth Springs School District are taking notes on how to best protect your child.
I mean, we're going to have an immediate response, and we think we have procedures in place to do just that.
An immediate response to the words active shooter would be ideal for schools across the state of Arkansas. Some schools are trying to protect students to the point where a response would not even be needed because procedures are in place to hopefully catch a situation before it even begins. The Highland School District is one of the larger districts in North Arkansas, averaging 1,550 students per year from Fulton, Sharp, Izard, and Randolph counties. The district district recently introduced a remodeling plan for their elementary school. On top of a new look, safety was also put into the mix. A new district-wide initiative, the Rave Panic Button, will allow for teachers to get help quickly if needed.
All of our staff are going to have the Rave Panic Button, an app on your phone, and so if something happened, fire, active shooter, tornado, any type of emergency, the teacher opens that app and hits that button, and then we should have an immediate response from administrators, SROs, CSSOs, and local.
Lewis tells me teachers on staff in the district have special training related to an active shooter scenario. Other safety measures, Highland features 3 resource officers on all 3 of their campuses. Each campus has a buzzer system located in the front office to allow personnel to view guests coming into the school.
We do have more opportunities because we have more students and we are a bigger school for additional resources.
Smaller communities such as Mammoth Spring don't get quite as much funding, as the district only has a total of around 450 students per year, almost a third of Highland's number. But if you think security might be a lower priority on the budget at a smaller district, that isn't the case. Not only does the school have a buzzer system for almost every entrance on campus, but new security cameras are also in the works. Superintendent Jenny Wisnat said it was a slow process, but almost every door on campus is now being monitored.
Whenever I was looking at the door systems and things, whenever I took over, the doors did not have the buzz system in. So throughout the year, we have just done 2 or 3 doors at a time, to where we've almost got all of our doors to where we have the access control.
Superintendent Wisnat says Mammoth Spring is on par with other districts its size.
I think we're getting there, is what I feel like. I'm starting to feel like we've got most of those things taken care of, and to where we're equal with them. I can't say that we're better, but we're equal.
And Chris, both superintendents told me they would do whatever it takes to make sure their kids are safe at school. In Highland, Hayden Savage, Region 8 News.
Hayden, thank you. And as students return to the classroom, teachers and school staff find themselves responsible for education and safety. It is a role they have to take serious, and some believe it is the biggest challenge of their career.
Everybody wants to be a hero. I don't know. I don't know that I would be a hero. I think I would be freaked out. I think I'm looking at these kids and I'm going, I've got to figure out what to do with them to try to save their life. Am I going to make the right decision?
Brandy Varner is a teacher of 5 years. She survived the West Side shooting. As we told you, her sister Brittany was killed. Today, a memorial sits behind the middle school honoring the victims. Every day, Varner walks into her classroom. She feels a sense of pressure to keep the children safe, and it is all related to her experience at West Side. Armani Williams is outside the Jonesboro High School now with a closer look at how teachers play a role in protecting the school. Amani.
Chris, now a relative to all the gun violence that happens across the country, school shootings are quite rare, but every time an incident like this happens, the question arises, what can we do to prepare, and what is the role of teachers? Only days before students file into the doors here at Maynard High School, educators and support staff prepare for the worst.
This is something that needs to be educated on so that you can be prepared for.
But hope for the best.
Our goal is really to prepare the faculty and staff in K-12 to react in the event of an active killer event.
Jared Bassium is the director of the Law Enforcement Training Academy. In 2010, the academy began teaching civilians like teachers about active shooter training skills. According to data by the National Center for Education Statistics, 72% of high schools reported having security staff present in 2016. In 2006, that number was only 63%. Bassium said as more school shootings happen, more districts are interested in the training academy.
We teach that curriculum. We've been doing this for many years now, but obviously with what happened in Uvalde, we've had a lot more demand recently.
Anxious.
Anybody fearful?
Very.
Yes. Bassium was a certified teacher before going into law enforcement. He said this type of preparedness is not often discussed.
For that 4 years where you were in an undergraduate program, no one really talks about this.
He said, but a teacher's role in an active shooter situation is to survive.
Is to give them tools to allow them and their students the highest degree of survivability rate possible.
Run, hide, fight. That is the national standard to go by. Bassium said they show educators different scenarios because some practices are not practical in certain situations.
We talk about evacuations, we talk about barricading in place and what they can do to harden the schools.
And the response changes by grade level.
What a kindergarten teacher and what a 12th grade teacher would do, two totally different things.
According to a report by NCES, more schools provided classroom management training to teachers and aides in the 2015-2016 school year than in the past years. Over the years, districts have added various security measures, including the training for teachers, controlled access to school buildings, and increasing the number of cameras on campus. After Maynard school staff went through the training academy, I asked how they felt.
Relieved. I feel a lot more relieved. I feel a lot more confident and empowered. I'm ready.
Now, leaders with the Maynard School District said they plan to continue trainings like this in the future, and BRTC also is offering this training to other school districts. Live in Jonesboro, Imani Williams, Region 8 News.
Imani, thank you. The Arkansas Department of Education Human Resources Office also provides active school shooting training. For new teachers and teachers who want a refresher course, the class is 2 hours. And providing a sense of security means preparing for the worst. When a tragedy happens, we expect our first responders to be well trained and ready to respond. So throughout the summer, members of the Jonesboro Police Department sharpened their skills with hours of training. The training is invaluable when it comes to saving lives.
Shots fired, shots fired, shots fired.
Real life scenarios designed to educate.
We're always in a state of training. We have training that goes on year-round. Training for us never stops.
These situations are designed to simulate a situation ripped from the headlines. So every officer responding knows what to do.
We don't want there to be any surprises.
Jonesboro Police Chief Rick Elliott said in the past 3 months, all of his officers have undergone extensive training to prepare for the worst. An active school shooter.
Open door left.
Each of Jonesboro Police Department's 4 different shifts have spent hours in area schools reenacting the scene.
You can't plan 100%. Everything will go smoothly according to plan.
The training simulates what officers might encounter when responding to a school shooting. They're forced to make decisions on how to save lives when they themselves may be under fire. Neutralizing the threat isn't Elliott's only expectation.
I expect everybody from the bottom all the way to myself that we will respond and we'll gear up and go in.
These simulations are more than officers looking for a shooter. The training prepares officers for scared students and staff running towards them.
You have to push that child aside and go find the person that's doing the shooting. If the shooting is still going on, you've got to stop the threat. So whether it's pushing the injured aside, stepping over somebody that's been injured, you've got to get to the shooter and stop the threat.
The goal is to prevent errors in a real-life situation.
Going through different aspects of the scenario is important. That any flaws you can bring out, critique, and polish up.
This summer training for Jonesboro police officers is in addition to months of previous training and regular continuing education. At the Black River Technical College Law Enforcement Academy, this is VirTra, a virtual reality shoot-don't-shoot simulator.
Where are they? Clear to go.
On the day we were there, 3 Randolph County Sheriff's deputies went through 2 scenarios. One, an active school shooting.
Your weapon. Drop your weapon. Drop your weapon.
Each officer was tasked with finding and neutralizing the killers.
That allows us in a controlled environment to teach decision making.
Jared Bassham is the Academy's director. Using a computer, he is able to control the outcome of the situation based on the officer's performance.
Allows us in a controlled environment to allow them to make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and they can see what their bodies are going to do to respond to that stimulus.
Sheriff's office, come out with your hands up. Surrender, come out with your hands up.
BRTC's Law Enforcement Academy requires officers to undergo this training before they graduate and are on the streets. In addition to split-second decision-making, it teaches them teamwork, including working with other departments during a mass casualty event.
And so you're getting this massive law enforcement presence. And by training, starting on the academy level and then moving up to the agency level, if I respond and there's an officer from the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and a state trooper and a Craighead County Sheriff's deputy, we've all been trained the same. We know what one another is going to do.
So if and when they are put in a situation where they must act to save lives, training kicks in and mistakes are minimized.
Dispatch, we have room secured. Go ahead and start sending new medical while we get these people assessed.
Can you hear me?
Since tragedies in schools began decades ago, it's much more common to find police officers playing a big role inside the walls of school buildings. We reached out to Randolph, Sharp, Lawrence, Clay, Greene, and Craighead County school districts to see how many SROs they had. We heard back from districts in Greene and Craighead County. There are a combined 33 officers in schools there. Paragould Police provides 4. The Greene County Sheriff's Department has 3. The Marmaduke Police Department provides 1. In Craighead County, there are 3 sheriff's deputies who act as SROs, and the Jonesboro Police Department provides 15. Jonesboro Public Schools also have 8 additional private security officers. The Paragould School District has 4 throughout their schools. Kenneth Hall Jr. says he understands parents might be scared to send their kids to school, but encourages them to put their trust in him and his fellow officers.
Meet me in person. Meet the other SROs. And you will know how much we care for these children. You will know what we would be willing to do to protect these children.
Hall said school resource officers not only protect the students, they also act as role models for students who may need them. According to Hall, building those relationships with students is the only way both parents and students will feel comfortable stepping into a building. And when an active shooter call goes out, officers from across the area will respond. The Jonesboro Police Department said if a situation unfolded here, it would not be unlikely for law enforcement from 40 or 50 miles away to respond. The problem becomes coordinating all of them. Our Chase Gage went behind the radios at the Craighead County E911 Center to see how it's done.
As I set out on my journey to find out just how the dispatch system works, I started by speaking with Jonesboro's 911 director, Ronnie Sturch. He gave me a detailed idea of how the center works and what I could expect during my sit-in.
And our job is to gather information. We do that every day, all day long. We gather information, but once we get that information, we can't hold that information. Our job is to put that out to the responders. We're going to get that information, we're going to put it out to them so then they are prepared and can make informed decisions in the field as to how they're going to address that situation.
However, conversations can only take you so far. After a breakdown of the rules when it comes to recording my experiences, I packed my things and headed across the hall to the dispatch center. Now the Jonesboro and Craighead County E911 Center is just behind me over here. I'm about to go inside for a behind-the-scenes look on just what happens when anyone calls 911. Once inside, I was given a headset to listen in to the radio and phone lines. Recording rules were very strict due to the nature of the information available inside the room, so all shots had to be coordinated after my shadow session. During my sit-in, I was able to see firsthand how dispatchers communicate information. At any given time, there are at least 4 dispatchers in the room. Typically, each has a few specific duties. They all monitor specific areas of the region and listen to different dispatch radio frequencies. As calls rolled in from both the 911 and non-emergency lines, whichever dispatcher was available would pick up and immediately assess what to do next. With the click of a button, they could forward the call to other departments or, in case of emergency, contact the nearest appropriate personnel. While I was there, the 911 line rang multiple times. Every time a report was made and either police or EMS were directed to the scene. Twice 911 was called accidentally, which I was told happens often. Still, those in the dispatch center answer every call anticipating a worst case scenario.
Police and Fire Dispatch, Melanie.
Sturch said keeping that mentality is key.
Unfortunately, we don't know when it's going to happen. So we have to be prepared that when it does happen, we don't miss a beat. When that phone rings, you always answer that phone with the mentality or with the mindset that this is that call. And if they do that and they answer every call that way, then it just works like clockwork. It falls into place.
If that scenario were to come, all available resources would immediately be redirected for assistance, and the 4 dispatchers would collect as much information as possible from all callers to get the best idea of what exactly is happening. Sturch said the most important part of the job is to relay as much detailed information as possible, as fast as possible. That helps the emergency crews on the ground know what to expect and helps direct specific aid to those in need. Though there is no such thing as too much information in these situations, the influx of calls can impact the dispatch center. In a high-risk, low-frequency event, an emergency operations status is declared. This allows dispatchers to disregard calls that are deemed non-emergency or not pertaining to the situation at hand. All calls will still be answered, but some, depending on the nature of the call, could be left unresolved until the emergency is handled. As highlighted by the Uvalde, Texas shooting, any lapse in communication can cost precious lives, making the speed and accuracy of the 911 center vital. It's something Sturch says he and his team know and take very, very seriously. Mere seconds could be the difference between life and death, and the dispatch center is the heartbeat that keeps those communication lines alive. Reporting in Jonesboro, Chase Gage, Region 8 News.
In the event of a mass casualty event expected to last hours or days, a mobile command center could be set up to handle communications and response coordination.
Lives on the line, split-second decisions could mean all the difference. Still ahead, protecting yourself when the worst happens to you. Plus, reflecting on the past to prepare for the future.
Every time I think of the shooting, all I see is her laying on the ground, shot in the head.
Those impacted by the tragedy at Westside Middle School remember that March day as they work to keep schools secure. And understanding is prevention. A look at why some believe the unthinkable becomes reality. You're watching a Region 8 News special investigation. Sense of Security. Protecting our children returns after this.